Hey everyone, welcome back to the Incredible India podcast series. I am Sam, the host for today's deep dive, and I am here with our resident expert, Taylor.
Hey everyone. Yeah, I am really excited to get into this one. It is a pretty wild story.
It really is. So I want you to imagine standing in front of this massive, just incredibly heavy iron door, and, behind that door sits an estimated $20 billion worth of pure gold, ancient diamonds, and just completely lost history.
Right, yeah, 20 billion with a B.
Exactly. Now imagine you have the backing of the Supreme Court, you have unlimited resources, diamond tip drills, military grade, ground penetrating radar, and the door still beats you.
It is crazy.
Right. Today, we are bringing you a deep dive into one of the most stubborn, fascinating, unsolved mysteries of the modern world. We are talking about Vault B of Kerala's ancient Padmanabhaswamy Temple.
And, it is a story that really forces us to question our own modern arrogance, I think.
Oh, totally.
Like, we just assume that because we have lasers and satellites and all this tech, there is no lock we cannot pick, right? No ancient secret we cannot uncover.
But Vault B completely dismantles that assumption.
It does. It is this amazing collision of ancient metallurgical engineering that actively defies modern physics, plus an astronomical treasure hoard and this intense legal battle about who actually owns human history.
Right, which means we need to understand the sheer scale of the stakes here. Because, you'd think $20 billion would buy enough motivation to get through a single iron door.
You would certainly think so.
Yeah. But to understand why Vault B is such a global obsession right now, we have to look at what was found sitting right next door to it. So we need to go down to Thiruvananthapuram in the southern Indian state of Kerala and look at the custodians of this temple, the Travancore royal family.
Yeah, the historical context here is entirely unique. It really is.
How so?
Well, back in 1750, the ruler of the region, Maharaja Marthandavarma, made this political and spiritual move that changed the trajectory of his kingdom forever. Right.
He didn't just build a temple. He legally and spiritually dedicated his entire kingdom, all his wealth, and all his sovereign power directly to the temple's deity.
Wow. Directly to Lord Padmanabha, which, for those listening, is a specific reclining form of the god Vishnu.
Exactly.
Which puts the royal family in a really bizarre position. They essentially downgraded themselves from absolute monarchs to, middle management for a deity.
That is precisely what happened, yeah. They took on the official title of Padmanabha.
Which translates to what, exactly?
It translates roughly to the servants, or the slaves, of Lord Padmanabha. So for over 250 years, they operated under the strict belief that they did not actually own the kingdom's wealth.
Right.
They were merely humble custodians managing the bank account on behalf of the god.
That is such a fascinating mindset.
Yeah.
And the centerpiece of their devotion is the idol inside the temple, right?
Yeah.
It is this massive 18-foot-long sculpture of the deity resting on a cosmic serpent. Yeah. And the construction of that idol is a marvel on its own. The source material notes it is made from over 12,000 sacred stones called Kadushakar Yogam.
Okay, wait, Kadushakar Yogam. For you listening, this isn't just a carving. It is a highly specific ancient Ayurvedic science.
Right. It is not just chiseled rock.
No, it is this meticulous mixture of rare herbs, resins, river sands, and natural binding agents. It is essentially an ancient composite material designed to last for eternity while resisting pests and decay.
The craftsmanship is just unparalleled. And because the royal family viewed themselves as mere caretakers of this masterpiece, they spent centuries just pouring immense amounts of gold, jewels, and international art into the temple's subterranean vaults.
They viewed it as their sacred duty.
Exactly. And for centuries, those vaults remained a quiet, heavily guarded local secret.
Well, until 2011, when the entire world suddenly found out exactly what they had been guarding down there.
Yeah, that was the turning point.
So, a former police officer named Sundarajan filed a petition in 2009. He was raising concerns about the security and the modern management of all this hidden wealth.
Which is fair, given the scale of it.
Right. And this triggered a massive legal chain reaction that went all the way up to the Supreme Court of India. So in 2011, the court issued a landmark order to open 5 of the temple's 6 underground vaults.
Vault A, C, D, E, and F.
Yeah. And when the authorities finally unsealed those 5 vaults, the inventory they took completely shattered our understanding of historical wealth.
It really did. The conservative estimate of just the raw melt value of the precious metals and gems was over $20 billion.
It's 20 billion. And the inventory lists are mind-bending. I was reading through them, and the authorities found a solid, pure gold throne meant to seat that 18-foot deity.
Just casually sitting there.
Right, and it was studded with hundreds of diamonds. They cataloged emeralds the size of ostrich eggs.
Which is hard to even picture.
I know. They found solid gold umbrellas used for ancient ceremonies and these incredibly delicate, intricately crafted golden coconuts and golden mangoes.
But the thing that really shifts the perspective is the massive piles of ancient Roman and Venetian gold coins.
Oh, absolutely. Those coins are the critical piece of the puzzle here.
Right, because they elevate the temple from just a treasure chest to a literal historical archive. The presence of Venetian ducats and Roman solida proves that the Malabar coast wasn't just like a regional power.
No, it was a central hub of global commerce.
Exactly.
It changes how we view the temple entirely. Like, this isn't a static tomb like King Tut's where a pharaoh died, everything was buried at once, and the door was sealed forever.
Right, it is not a time capsule.
No, this temple operated more like an ancient, continuously active global bank account spanning millennia. It proves there was incredible, sustained cross-cultural trade happening.
Yeah, and the profits of the spice route and the silk trade were being deposited directly into this sacred vault, compounding year after year.
A compounding repository of global wealth, driven by a combination of unshakable faith and international trade.
Which, of course, brings us to the most frustrating question in modern archaeology.
Oh, I know where you were going with this.
Right. If Vault A and the minor vaults contain $20 billion of global artifacts, what on earth is waiting inside Vault B?
The one vault they didn't open. The door that actively rejects modern physics.
It really does. Vault B's entrance isn't just locked. It is an architectural anomaly.
Explain that for the listener. What does it actually look like?
So the entrance is blocked by a massive iron door, but it doesn't function like a normal door at all. It appears to be seamlessly fused with the massive granite framework surrounding it.
Seamlessly fused. So what about hinges?
There are no visible hinges.
Yeah.
No keyholes, no latches, bolts, or handles of any kind.
That is wild. It looks as if the iron and the stone were molded and hardened at the exact same moment.
Yeah, and the bizarre physical properties do not stop at the visual level. Scientists took thermal readings of the door, and the results were completely baffling.
The temperature readings.
Yes. The massive iron slab remains consistently cooler than the ambient temperature of the surrounding stone, even during the oppressive peak heat of the Kerala summer.
Which makes literally no sense. I mean, iron is a highly efficient thermal conductor. It should rapidly absorb the ambient heat of the stone and match or even exceed the surrounding temperature.
It should, yeah.
Okay.
But it doesn't. So faced with a door that physically shouldn't exist, engineers and scientists naturally decided to bring in the heavy machinery.
Of course they did.
Right. And the source documents outline this specific, escalating series of technological failures that honestly read like science fiction.
Like, where did they even start?
Well, they started with structural engineers trying to use diamond-tipped drills. These are tools specifically designed in modern labs to cut through the absolute strongest alloys on Earth.
Right, they just wanted to create a microscopic exploratory hole to feed a camera through.
Exactly. Yet the drill bits dulled and became entirely useless after penetrating just a few millimeters. Yeah. The carbon structure of the diamonds was somehow outmatched by whatever ancient alloy makes up that door.
So physical breaching was out, they couldn't cut it, so I guess they tried to look through it using X-ray technology.
They did, and the X-rays were entirely blocked.
Completely blocked.
Completely. To stop an X-ray dead in its tracks, you typically need thick sheets of heavy lead or incredibly dense, specialized modern alloys.
Right.
The composition of this ancient door defied known metallurgy by somehow stopping electromagnetic radiation from penetrating even a fraction of an inch.
That is insane. So they couldn't drill and they couldn't X-ray, so the authorities escalated to military-grade scanners and ground-penetrating radar.
With similarly disastrous results, honestly. The radar readings came back completely erratic and conflicting.
What do you mean by conflicting?
Well, one pass of the scanner would suggest a massive, echoing, empty cavern behind the door. But then a second scan, taken just moments later in the exact same spot, would indicate a solid block of impenetrable rock.
That shouldn't be possible.
I know. Even when they tried ultrasound waves, the physics just broke down. Acoustic waves were either completely absorbed by the door, which implies some sort of perfect vacuum layer, behind the
Missing a
metal
bubble
layer.
layer.
Yeah, or they were reflected back in scattered patterns that suggest a complex geometric acoustic baffling system hidden inside the iron.
Okay, when you read all of this, diamond drills failing, x-rays bouncing off, ultrasound waves getting swallowed, and temperatures dropping, it is dangerously easy to throw your hands up and say, well, it's magic.
It's tempting, for sure.
But let's look at this logically. What if this isn't magic at all, but a lost masterpiece of ancient Vastushastra engineering?
Ah, right.
For you listening, Vastushastra is the traditional Indian system of architecture. It is this incredibly complex ancient science of spatial geometry, alignment, and material properties.
And that is exactly the hypothesis many structural engineers are exploring right now.
It makes sense.
It does. The craftsmanship required to build a door with 0 mm gaps, using stone blocks and iron that interlock so perfectly they become a seamless barrier. I mean, it implies a profound ancient knowledge of load distribution and metallurgy.
Right. It sounds like a massive interlocking biometric puzzle, like a door that relies on perfectly balanced, hidden counterweights and precise pressure points constructed with materials deliberately forged to short-circuit any brute force entry.
Exactly. It doesn't need a key. It needs a specific, sequenced physical interaction that we have just completely forgotten.
Wow. And because our modern tools cannot breach it and we do not know the sequence to unlock it, we are forced to confront the psychological deterrence the original builders left behind.
And the warnings guarding Vault B are truly terrifying.
They really are. The stone area immediately surrounding Vault B is covered in ominous Sanskrit inscriptions, deeply carved warnings that invoke the protection of guardian spirits.
Yeah, there are intricate carvings of cobras everywhere, their hoods flared out defensively.
And these cobras represent Ananashesha, right? The multi-headed cosmic serpent we mentioned earlier, the one Lord Padmanabha reclines upon.
That is the one. In Hindu theology, these carvings are not merely decorative motifs. They are considered active, vibrating spiritual barriers.
You also find the Sudarshana chakra, which is the spinning divine weapon of Lord Vishnu, carved into the stone at precise geometric intervals.
Right, and the local conviction is absolute about this. The vault is guarded by Naga's divine serpents, and there is a legendary curse attached to the seal of the door.
A curse that promises complete, inescapable ruin for 7 generations to anyone who dares to force the door open.
7 generations.
Yeah, we are talking about mysterious illnesses, catastrophic financial ruin, and physical calamity for the entire region. The local population treats these warnings with intense, genuine reverence.
As they should. There are even credible reports of low, rhythmic humming and chanting echoing from behind the iron door during certain lunar phases.
Oh, that gives me chills. The mythology is undeniably powerful. But you know what is truly fascinating?
What's that?
When you consult modern scientific experts, they validate the exact same danger, they just use a different vocabulary.
Oh, right. Take Dr. Rajesh Kumar, for instance. He is a renowned archaeologist who studied the temple. He points out that this subterranean chamber has likely been hermetically sealed for centuries, perhaps well over a millennium.
Okay, let's break down what that actually means for a human body. Imagine air that has been trapped in a sealed stone box for 1,000 years. The oxygen is completely depleted. It becomes a deeply anoxic environment.
Precisely. In an anoxic environment sealed for that long, you have centuries of anaerobic bacteria breaking down whatever organic material might be inside.
Right.
This process slowly fills the chamber with heavy, suffocating, highly lethal toxic gases. So if you force that door open and crack the seal, the pressure difference will force those invisible deadly gases rushing out into the corridor.
So an invisible deadly force that rushes out and instantly strikes down anyone standing in front of the door. Taylor, that sounds exactly like a serpent's breath.
It really does. It is eerie how perfectly that lines up. And the scientific warnings don't stop at toxic gas either.
What else is there?
Structural engineers have studied the mathematical precision of the door's placement and warned that it might actually be a load-bearing linchpin.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The door might be the central anchor of a delicate, ancient counterweight system holding up the temple above it.
Oh, wow.
So if you use hydraulic machinery to force the iron slab out of its frame, you could literally trigger a catastrophic collapse of the entire temple structure.
Which is crazy because the mythological curse promises the temple will fall into ruin. And the engineers promise a catastrophic structural collapse.
The exact same outcome. And finally, we have the conservationists. They warn that if you miraculously manage to open the door without dying from toxic gas or collapsing the ceiling, the sudden influx of modern, oxygen-rich air light and humidity would be devastating.
Because of oxidation.
Exactly. Priceless organic artifacts like ancient silk textiles or millennia-old palm leaf manuscripts detailing lost histories, they would rapidly oxidize and disintegrate into dust before anyone could even photograph them.
This is the ultimate realization when looking at this case.
Yeah.
The ancient spiritual mythology says, a serpent will breathe poison on you, the temple will fall, and the treasure will turn to dust.
Right.
And modern scientific hazard assessments say you will inhale lethal toxic gases, cause a catastrophic structural collapse, and instantly destroy organic artifacts through sudden oxidation.
They are saying the exact same thing across centuries. Do not open this door.
It is a profound, humbling overlap between ancient mythological warnings and modern scientific reality. The builders knew exactly what they were doing.
They absolutely did. But of course, human curiosity is a relentless force.
Always is.
And the desire for financial transparency in a modern democracy is just as strong, which is what ultimately sparked the massive legal war over Vault B.
Right. Despite the physical barriers, the failure of modern technology, the threat of toxic gases, and the ancient curses, the sheer idea of what might be in there was too much for the modern world to ignore.
It really was.
It became one of the most defining constitutional battles in India's history.
And it is crucial we look at both sides of this legal debate neutrally, because both sides represent deeply held fundamental principles of how a society should operate.
Okay, lay it out for us.
On one side, we have the Travancore royal family and millions of devotees. Their legal argument is grounded heavily in Articles 25 and 26 of the Indian Constitution.
And those guarantee the freedom of religion.
Right, exactly. They guarantee the freedom of religion and the right of a religious denomination to manage its own affairs.
So their position is essentially a defense of sacred sanctity and historical stewardship.
Yes. They argue that they have been the custodians for over 250 years, and there is zero evidence of theft or mismanagement on their watch. They view Vault B not as a public bank vault, but as an active sacred space. Forcing it open with drills and cameras violently violates their fundamental religious rights.
It is a very strong argument based on centuries of precedent. But then you have the opposing side, the original petitioners, activists, and various government authorities.
Right, and they ground their argument in Articles 39B and 39Cs of the Constitution.
Which state what, exactly?
These articles direct the state to ensure that the material resources of the community are distributed to serve the common good, and that the economic system does not result in the concentration of wealth to the common detriment.
To put that in perspective for you listening, the government's argument is that $20 billion is a massive chunk of a nation's GDP.
It is a staggering amount of money.
Yeah. Their perspective is that in a modern democratic society, you cannot have an asset of that staggering magnitude sitting in a basement locked away in a private hereditary trust.
Regardless of who it belongs to, wealth of that scale requires absolute democratic transparency, public accountability, and rigorous auditing.
It is the ultimate clash between tradition and transparency. Ancient faith versus modern accounting.
Really well put. So how did the highest court in the land resolve this incredibly delicate tension?
Right. What happened in 2020?
Well, the Supreme Court of India delivered a definitive landmark verdict. They permanently refused to order the opening of Vault B.
They just completely shut the debate down and left the door sealed.
They did. The bench, led by Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi, delivered a fascinating reasoning. They stated that the court would not interfere with matters that could deeply disturb the spiritual sanctity of the temple, the deeply held faith of millions of people.
Wow.
Yeah, they officially acknowledged that Vault B holds a unique protected status in the temple's tradition that the other 5 vaults simply did not.
And the court also anchored this decision in global legal thought by citing international precedents, right?
They did.
They looked at other highly sacred sites around the world that are legally protected from being opened, explored, or exploited by modern curiosity.
Exactly. The Supreme Court cited the Vatican's secret archives, where the Catholic Church legally restricts public and scientific access to certain historical documents.
Oh, that is a great comparison.
And they pointed to the Potala Palace in Tibet, where deeply sacred, sealed chambers remain legally untouched to prevent the destruction of cultural heritage.
And they drew parallels to the Aboriginal protections in Australia regarding Uluru, too.
Yes. In that case, courts and governments eventually ruled that the spiritual significance of a site to the indigenous people can and should absolutely override scientific, archaeological, or commercial interests.
So the Supreme Court of India effectively aligned with this international legal principle. Some things are simply too sacred to disturb.
It is a powerful legal statement in a world that usually prioritizes data over devotion.
It really is. Which brings us to the core philosophical tension of this entire story. I want to pose a thought experiment to you listening.
Okay, let's hear it.
Think about the hyper-modern, scientifically driven world we live in today. Where exactly do we draw the line between a historical artifact that belongs to the shared history of humanity and a sacred item that belongs solely to a specific faith?
That is the million-dollar question, or $20 billion question, I guess.
Right. If there is an ancient text, a lost technology, or a relic in Vault B that could fundamentally rewrite our understanding of human history, does the global public have an inherent right to know about it? Or does the right of a belief system to keep its mysteries intact trump our collective scientific curiosity?
We live in an era where we feel inherently entitled to every single piece of information.
Yeah.
I mean, we have satellites mapping every inch of the globe in real time.
Yes.
We have algorithms predicting our daily behavior and electron microscopes unraveling the very DNA of our existence. We expect everything in the universe to be eliminated, documented, quantified, and cataloged.
But Vault B refuses to comply with that modern entitlement. It just sits there in the dark, holding its ground. It acts as a literal, physical iron door and a metaphorical barrier against the relentless demand of the information age.
It is a profoundly humbling reminder from the ancient world that we are not the masters of every secret.
It really is. It makes you wonder if Vault B's true value isn't whatever fabled glowing gems, lost coins, or divine weapons might be hidden behind that iron slab.
Weeding.
Perhaps the greatest treasure of Vault B is what it forces us to do right now. It forces our hyper-connected, hyper-transparent modern society to sit back and accept that we don't get to know everything.
Oh, I see.
It forces us to accept that some mysteries are allowed to remain completely unsolved, and some doors are just meant to stay closed.
A physical boundary line drawn by history that we must respect.
Exactly. It leaves you wondering what other ancient secrets the past is still successfully hiding from us, waiting quietly in the dark.
Gives you a lot to think about.
It really does. If you decide to travel to Kerala or any other part of India, we have a recommendation. 5 Senses Tours organizes tours across India, which are immersive cultural experiences. You can email contact@5sensestours.com or WhatsApp to +919-845-677-446.